What's up, family? Badi from Farming with the Fam here. Last time we talked about how to start your container garden from seed. And today we're going to talk about what to do once you start to see your seedlings popping up in your starter trays. But before we get into that, I want to follow up, and I want to say apologies, but I forgot to mention that you might want to get some kind of method. I ordered these little plastic things, but you want to create some kind of way to document what you're planting, because when they're small, they look nothing like the mature version of the plant. This here, believe it or not, is basil. Does that look anything like basil to you? No. So when they're small, it's not even going to look like the real plant. So you want to document, because they all sort of look alike. Okay, so the first thing, you're going to need some type of implement. I like to use a case knife or a butter knife, as some people call it. And the butter knife is used so that we can scoop the plant up out of the cells. And you want to be careful when you do this, and just go around the edges like this to get it out. But first, let's fill this cup with a little dirt. All right, and then you want to I always make a little indentation in here so that there's room to, if the roots are really long, they can get down in there real good. And you want to be careful because there are roots in here. And whether I'm coming from the seed tray or from a potted plant, graduating it to a larger pot, I like to make sure that some of the soil comes over with it. And in that way, you're getting some of the ecology that it's already familiar with in there. And it's less shocking to the plant, I believe. So, and then you want to fill this up with a little bit more soil. This. A little bit more, make sure it's good and in there nice and snug. After you've transferred your plant, you want to make sure you water it right away, because plants experience root shock when you transplant them. And to give them a little relief from the shock, you want to water it right away. Now, in this particular case, I'm going to water it from overhead like this, just so that you can see. And you want to use a watering can, because it simulates rain and it doesn't compact the soil as much. But and there's you can see that this is draining from the bottom, right? So you want to make sure you have some kind of container. And ideally, what you want to do, rather than watering it from overhead like that, you want to put the water in the container and let it soak up through the bottom. You get a much more even watering, and you don't compact the soil, and it's just better overall for the health of the plant, because you don't get fungus growing on your leaves from excess moisture. And that's it. It's really that simple. And I'm going to let my assistants try this to prove how simple this really is. First, they're going to fill their cups with dirt. Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. Now, take your knife and lift one of the plants out. Yes, make a little hole in there. Good job. There you go. Gentle. There you go. There you go. Good job. Get it in there. Maybe make that hole a little bit deeper so that you can put it down in there. Make that hole a little bit bigger. You have more room to drop it down in the hole. See how stable that is? There you go. Good job. And now it's time to water it. So just a little. Doesn't take a lot. It's perfect. All right. Drop it in That's it. Good job. Next, we're going to talk about what to do when your plant has matured a bit and you need to graduate it up to the next level of pot. Such is the case with this tomato. Now, I want you to zoom in real close here and look at this. Tomatoes have these little fine hairs on the stem, and when you graduate the tomato plant to the next size pot, you want to make sure that you bury it pretty deep, because those little fine hairs become roots if you cover them up with soil. So what we do here is find the next size pot that you want. And again, this is a pot that from last year I used or cleaned it, and I'm reusing it. You'll hear me say the words reuse a lot. It's one of the fundamental principles of permaculture. I don't want you going out and spending a bunch of money. I want you to reuse as much as you can. And again, I like to just turn the plant upside down. I like to make sure that I get some of the soil from this pot in here. It's part of the ecology of this plant at this point. I want to make sure that it's part of the ecology of the new pot. I make sure that soil gets in there. And then what I do is I add a little bit more soil just to make sure that, you know, those little furry hairs get covered up and produce new roots. And just like last time, we want to alleviate the shock of being transplanted with a little water. And away we go. Now you want to keep graduating the tomato. This is a technique that people use. You want to keep graduating it as it gets bigger and the stem gets thicker. You want to keep graduating it up to the next size pot before you plant it in the ground. Once the soil is 65, you can put it in the ground. But I like to have it almost fully mature before I actually put it in the ground. It's just one of many techniques having to do with tomatoes, but I wanted to explain that about tomatoes because this is a really good plant to show the process of transplanting because of those fine hairs and what they actually represent. A planter box is also a type of container. This is a shipping crate that I reused as a planter box. I lined it with some landscape fabric and then converted it into a growing space. Filled it with soil. So, this is another type of transfer. Same process, just a different medium, just a larger size medium. These are turnip greens. And for that I do exactly the same process. Create a little indentation in the soil. And I want to break that up a little bit so that the roots have room to grow. Nice loose soil. Fill it in. And voila. There you have it. Container gardening demystified. You're ready to go. I'm glad we could be together again.